Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am your saviour, Sam Graves, and welcome to another episode of The Modern Mark. Today we are looking at a show chosen by...
CJM, Captain Jack Morgan.
So, with the way that we're doing this show on The Modern Mark, as you know, I review the modern pay-per-views in this, so WWE's main roster shows, and NXT takeovers, and AEW, and whatever else I feel like watching. This series will now also be any pay-per-view that we watched in the last 10 years, so 2010 to 2020, so basically 10 years from whatever year we're recording this, 2020 at this time, May 2020. And today we're looking at one of the first NXT takeovers from December 2014, chosen by CJM. It's NXT Revolution.
Yep, because why not spell it as Revolution? This was literally just done for a stupid pun.
Now, this is our second take of this review, because me and my infinite wisdom hadn't realised that the USB was not plugged into the back of my mic correctly. So we've basically spent 20 minutes not recording a review, and nothing was being picked up by my mic because the cable wasn't in properly, because I'm a fucking idiot. But you know that you come to expect this from me by now if you watch my ECW reviews. I tend to miss spots, or I tend to fluff my lines up. I do all my reviews on my own without notes because of my sight issue. So this one, thankfully, the captain's helping out because he's being the note taker for this show. So thank you very much, Jex, for that help in the show. So I'm not going to make as many botches.
That's all right. So the first thing you noted, so we've got a new segment. Whenever I turn up, it's called Sign of the Times.
Yeah.
So we're just going to point out. So I'll probably point out stupid signs that we see in the course of the show. As soon as the show started, I saw one that just said, "I'm only cheering for the cameraman."
I'll be honest.
It does remind me of one of my favourite signs I saw on a Raw once. It was a sign that someone was holding up that said, "I meant to go to NXT."
Yeah. Sign of the times. Even back then, NXT was better than the main roster, which was kind of surprising considering this was pretty much a developmental territory at this point. NXT is not considered developmental really anymore.
So this is why I feel like for this sort of show we've got to kind of cut them some slack, because this is still technically a developmental territory.
Yeah.
This is before it becomes Indie Darling Festival Gardens.
Yes, so at this point it was 2 years after the rebranding from FCW to NXT, and you know they were still having their growing pains at this point. But you know give them some slack, cut a bit of beef off the meat, fat off the meat. You've got to give them a bit of slack for them at this current time. So the other thing I will say before we start the review of the show is we will be doing this in a new format. Any of those of you who watch my ECW Anarchy Rules review will know that I explained this in this video. Each review will be split up into two parts. First half of the show will be, doing like all the date of the pay-per-view, etc., etc. And the first half of the show. And then the second half will be the second half of the show. And then, of course, will be the final grading and all the awards that we give out. So, Sign of the Times will be in the first or second half of the show, depending on what time Leon sees the sign during the pay-per-view. So,
I'll try and see if I can find any other signs during the pay-per-view, but if not, then the one I mentioned, Sign of the Times. You there, dude?
Yeah, no, I think Discord decided to be a bit of a bitch again.
Yeah. Do you want me to say what I said again?
Yes, repeat that, because we're going to have to edit that out.
Basically, if I don't see any other signs, then I won't. Then the one I mentioned earlier will win Sign of the Times.
Yeah. So, fuck's sake, it's cut out again. For fuck's sake. Right, can you explain that for a third time, please?
Okay, for fuck's sake.
Right, 3,
cheer for
2.
The cameraman.
Right, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, the cheer for the cameraman sign will win Sign of the Times award. Maybe don't see anything.
Yeah, it will do. It wasn't as funny as the previous signs that we've seen in our series. I mean, Scott Hudson is a gimp. It's still going to be my number one sign. Or, as you pointed out when we watched ECW Hardcore Heaven, Taz tosses salad.
Did you actually go and look up what that meant?
Well, no, because I think most people who with a brain in their head know what the word toss off actually means.
Yeah,
Right.
salad tossing is a bit different.
Yes, I know, and I don't really want to go into that on this pay-per-view if there are children watching. So, anyway, it is December 2014. We are live at Full Sail University in Winter Park, Florida, as normal for NXT takeovers and NXT at the time. And our opening contest is Kevin Owens defeating CJ Parker in a fun squash match.
I think the first thing I can note here is we have an interesting commentary team. We have Alex Riley. We have Corey Graves, who had just retired at this point. No relation to Sam Graves. But yeah, Corey Graves had to retire because of concussions, I think. So this is his first night as a commentator, and then he moved into the commentary role full time. And Frodo Baggins, I think. Yeah,
it's Rich somebody. He was the first commentator of NXT, or the first main commentator, before obviously Mauro Ranallo became the full-time commentator in 2017. I can't remember this guy's name, and frankly, he is that inconsequential on this pay-per-view, so I can't be bothered to look who he is. So, Kevin Owens versus CJ Parker. This is Owens' NXT debut.
CJ Parker is Juice Robinson, former IWGP US champion.
Yep, and he's currently the leader of Bullet Club, is he?
He's not in Bullet Club, is he?
Oh, I can't remember. He was in a stable. He's been in a stable. He's in a stable in New Japan. That's all I know.
I'll have a look while we do that. Anything? Just talk about this match. Anything you've seen so far?
Well, there's not really much to this match. I mean, at the start of it, there's a really nice tope by Owens. At the start of it, he rips up CJ Parker's sign because at this time CJ Parker was doing his Eco Warrior gimmick.
Yeah. Oh, he's in a tag team with David Finlay.
Oh right, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, known as Finn Juice.
Fair enough then.
And he's also dating Toni Storm now, apparently.
She is quite fit. I will say that.
Good for him.
Yes.
Yeah. Things I noted, there was a KO Cannonball, that was pretty good. Breaks CJ Parker's sign, and there was a good reaction to that. Got the tope. Parker hits what looks like a Harlem sidekick to cut Owens off. Like, he gets a couple of kicks in, misses the senton.
Yep.
And then we get the palm strike that just breaks Owens' nose.
Palm strike of death!
Like, his nose just opens up.
That gets the only 2 count of the match for Parker.
And then after that, Owens fires up. Hits, perhaps, so far, probably the best move of the night.
Yeah, he hits a pump handle neck breaker. And I was marking out like hell for this. Really, really good move.
And then pop-up powerbomb for the win.
Yeah, it's about a 3-4 minute match. It's a squash match. Like I said, there wasn't really anything to it right at the start of the match until Owens hit the tope. A few good moves in it. Really fun match though with Owens. He shows how much of a tough man he is. I'm giving it 2 stars. What about you, Captain? Are you giving it 2 as well? 2.5 maybe?
2.5. I think the blood added to this.
Yeah,
I mean, it really helped get Owens over.
It made Owens look like a badass, but of course the referee during that time, obviously with the whole, I've got to put gloves on.
Yeah, I think he went to go and check on Owens, but I think Owens just said to him, I'm fine.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's be honest, Kevin Steen is a real tough nut in real life. He always has been. Okay, you watch some of his matches in Ring of Honor, you see how much punishment the man can take.
And on Twitter, he flip-flops between either being a troll or the greatest dad of all time.
Yeah. The man, I like I say, I respect Owens a hell of a lot in real life. He's a great fucking guy. Anyway, after this match, we had our second match of the night. So, as I called them when me and Liam were discussing this before we started recording, I called them the Kalisto Dragons. And so the Kalisto Dragons versus the English Villains, or English Blokes, whatever.
So Lucha Dragons versus Four Villains. I didn't get too many notes on this one. I think we both agreed this seems like a good TV match, like a TV main event or something like that.
I mean, I gave it 3 stars. You gave it 3 stars. It wasn't a bad match by any stretch of the imagination.
I think it should have been given longer, but one thing I'll note is Sin Cara was really good in this match.
Yes, there's not actually many botches from him in this match.
Yeah, I think Kalisto got a good handspring Zaguri in. Also, Sin Cara hit a really good Michinoku driver on, I think it was Gotch.
Yeah, that got a 2 count. End
The
of the match.
Sandy Del Sol finish, though, that came out of nowhere.
So the end of the match comes where the Lucha Dragons hit Stereo dives. English throws Gotch out the way to save him. He basically takes the full weight of the dive from the Lucha Dragons. Gotch rolls Kalisto back in the ring, and then Kalisto hits the Salida del Sol out of nowhere. I'll be honest, I didn't like the finish to this. I really thought that it was more of a fluke win for the Lucha Dragons. The ending to this match. Didn't like the finish at all.
Yeah. Alright, so I'm going to take this next one over because Mr. Graves here, he does not like this next match at all.
So, before we go on to the next match...
Yeah, before we go on to that, there was some things with... we saw Adrian Neville warming up before his Adrian disappeared.
Yeah, and there's some bloke who just walks back behind him in the background. No idea who this guy is. He's wearing a 2K15 shirt. We were trying to identify this guy, but it was just some random guy.
I think he might just be some tech guy who works backstage or something.
Yeah. So, I forgot to mention as well that, I don't know if I mentioned this, we both gave the last match 3 stars. So, in our third match of the night, so this is the first and last bit I'm going to say on this match, Baron Corbin defeated Ty Dillinger in a shit squash match.
Okay, so the first thing I noted, Ty Dillinger comes out. I can't tell if Dillinger's heel here because he gets no reaction. I think he's heel, but he doesn't get a reaction at all. This is before the whole Perfect 10 thing started. But one thing I noted, huge pop for Baron Corbin.
Yeah, and one thing I did note before this match started was Corbin. It's actually surprising to see Corbin has hair.
I mean, it's surprising to see that Corbin is over.
Yeah, I know. So, what happened in this? Because I don't want to mention anything in this match.
Okay, so we get an aggressive lockup as the crowd starts chanting the clock timer, because this is during Corbin's early repackaging, because he had been in a few matches beforehand, but there were many like battle royales and stuff like that. So this was just his his proper repackaged new look, and basically he would win matches in under a minute, and the crowd would kind of count along with how fast he'd win.
Yeah, Bull Dempsey makes an appearance in this match.
Yeah, kind of setting up a feud between the two. I say feud in quotation marks. It was the dream match we didn't want.
Yeah, I mean, even back in these days, the match I saw their match on, I think it was the takeover after, so the one following or 2 after this, it was a fucking terrible match.
Yeah,
it's a shit match.
One thing to note is there's probably a big copyright infringement heat between Taker and Corbin, because Snake Eyes and Big Boot combo, we know who does that.
Yeah, and then End of Days gets the win.
Yeah, it was about 45 seconds.
Yeah, I gave it a dud. It's just it's not that I hated the match. It's just it literally was nothing. It was just a squash match on a pay-per-view. Well, equivalent of a pay-per-view, a special event if you want to be picky about it. But it's just pointless. I mean, the Owens one I understand because of the fact that Owens is a much bigger star than Corbin was at the time.
And given that Owens had built up a name, this was considered quite huge.
Yeah, I mean, you look at both guys now. Sean Spears, who is the real Ty Dillinger, he's wrestling in AEW alongside Tully Blanchard. Tully Blanchard, his manager, and
also had a match recently that you fucking hated.
Yeah, last night, was recording this the day after Double or Nothing. I did order the pay-per-view. I would recommend watching it because it's still quite a good show. And in that match, he basically ended up calling out Dustin Rhodes because Dustin's been teasing his retirement, and it ended with basically Dustin embarrassing him, pulling his boxers down, and having a picture of Tully Blanchard on his arse, on his pants below his boxers. It's really fucking embarrassing with AEW. They've been on a roll with pound pay-per-views, and it's the worst thing I've seen on an AEW show so far. And then, it's fucking terrible. Cringy was the best way to describe it. Anyway, we're not here to talk about that. Yeah, we're not here to talk about what's currently going on in AEW. We'll save that for another show. So, in our fourth match after this, we had a Sami Zayn video package.
Well, it was mainly him just kind of warming up as well.
Yeah, Sami Zayn warming up, and then we had an insert where Sami was basically I used to love this, where they used to have the interviews on WWE.com and on the YouTube show where Michael Cole used to sit sit down with someone and have an interview. I used to love this back in
Yeah.
it was 2014 to 2016. Really good thing they used to do it.
Yeah, because Cole does some pretty good interviews.
Yeah, I mean, Cole. I'll be honest with Michael Cole. He does get a bit too much flack. But obviously most of the things he does, he gets obviously pelted in the ear by Vince McMahon every 5 minutes or every 5 seconds, should I say?
Yeah,
Right.
he doesn't treat him like a commentator. He treats him as like basically this giant plug machine.
Yes, and this is why WWE's main roster commentary is pretty shit compared to AEW, New Japan, and MLW. The Ring of Honor and Impact Wrestling. The fucking top commentary in WWE main roster is pretty terrible.
And even EAW is better.
AEW. Oh
No,
yeah,
we're talking about
EAW. Yeah. Our local Fed. Sorry, if anyone doesn't know what EAW is, we both live in Northamptonshire, and EAW is our local wrestling federation here. And
crap, they're gonna find us.
Yeah,
we're gonna have Michael Cole turn up to Northampton with a baseball bat.
yeah, it's gonna be the WWE invasion of a federation that regularly sees only 150 people at each of their shows. But anyway, I digress. So, in our last match of this part of the review, Finn Balor and Hideo Itami defeated the Ascension in a boring match. 2 stars I'm giving this one.
I've given this 3 stars. I think it's not terrible, but it's not good. Well, not great. It's just there. I've put my main note is you could argue this is the match that killed Hideo Itami's momentum.
Yeah.
He was always over up until he got injured like twice, but this whole match was just a Finn Balor wank-off exercise.
Oh, it was. It was, what, 15-minute match?
Look at the huge fanfare that Hideo Itami came into. He has a feud with the Ascension, and Balor is basically the backup. But this whole match is booked around Finn Balor, and Hideo Itami is effectively a human meat shield.
Mm.
So they've never. So after this match, Itami was never really seen on Balor's level. Then suddenly became he was just Finn Balor's mate.
I don't want to go on a slight rant here, but Hideo Itami was really misused in WWE. Even though he had his injuries with the 2 knee injuries they had, which caused a lot of missed time, I still think that Itami, the time he did have in ring, he just wasn't treated very well.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So I mean, the reason I gave this one 2 stars was because of how boring the Ascension's offense was in this match. Now, as this was the last NXT match the Ascension had before they made their main roster debut in January of 2015. And then they had their first pay-per-view match against the New Age Outlaws, of all people, at the Royal Rumble. And I gave that one a dud when I reviewed it with James Starr 5 years ago. Shit match, and it made the Ascension look completely weak. Never got out the gates on the main roster. And
so my notes on here, so we've got the debut of the Demon King. Holy shit, chanting out. I will admit it's very good entrance.
Mm.
Like, puts over the character huge. The Ascension sell it really well. Like, their reactions outside the ring, they don't really know what to make of it. One cringeworthy thing I noted, there was the chance of marking out. That was pretty cringeworthy.
Yeah.
Nice, huge, like, one-leg shotgun dropkick by Hideo Itami. Like, right at the start. We didn't get a dropkick by Balor and Connor. It was only enough for a 1 count. Itami starts lighting up Connor, and then there was the flapjack. Itami gets a good savate kick, and then Victor cuts off Balor to prevent the hot tag. And then this one moment that you made me go back and listen to, and then make a note on it. Alex Riley claims Finn Balor and Hideo Itami can't speak English because Finn Balor's still speaking Gaelic and Hideo Itami can only speak Japanese, despite the promo package before this match showing that both wrestlers speak perfect English.
Yes, so why say fucking something stupid like this? Oh god, this is Michael Cole levels of bad. This is what I'm talking about. Michael Cole. Michael Cole's.
This is David Otunga levels of bad. But yeah, because you even see in that promo package, Hideo Itami, for someone whose English is not his first language, speaks really good English.
He's probably the best Japanese wrestler that WWE had at the time. that, or even in the last 10 years that can speak perfect English, because Itami's English is really good. The only person who can match him in terms of speaking fluent English from a Japanese wrestler is Akira Tozawa. I mean, Nakamura does speak fluent English. Issue being is the fact that they don't actually bother showing him. And Asuka and Kairi Sane and Io Shirai can speak perfect English. But again, Asuka's character, Kairi Sane's character, Shirai's character. Get why they don't speak English. Anyway.
Swiftly moving back on. Victor gets a really good fist roll. I think what I noted in this, Victor is probably... I'd say Victor's my MVP of this match.
Well, he is, and I'll be honest, right? And the reason why I give it 2 stars is because of the fact that Connor's just one of the most boring wrestlers in the world. All he does is literally just use punches and kicks. He barely does any good wrestling moves. Victor is the much more talented member of the Ascension, in my opinion.
Yeah, they teased the whole thing of like the hot tag and stuff, but they teased it for way too long. Just beat down on Itami way too much, and I don't think Itami got enough offense in. So this is another thing that made Itami look second banana, if you will.
Second rate. Second rate was what I'm thinking. Not second banana, second rate. So bargain basement type thing. See, this is what the thing I said earlier in the review. Itami was misused at all points, and this match perfectly shows it. I mean, you mentioned while we were watching this match multiple times that Itami is literally he's literally just Finn Balor's mate, as you said earlier. But also the other interesting thing you mentioned as well during that part of the review was regarding the fact that, you know, this is Itami's pretty much one of Itami's first matches in NXT and Balor's, and yet look at there's night and day between the two.
Yeah, and Itami is basically used as like a glorified meat shield.
Pretty much, yeah. He basically is Marty Jannetty to Shawn Michaels, even though there's literally 1 month. These two would tag on and off for the best part of 2 years. So
yeah, there was a good Finn Balor hot tag. So I'm not going to try and shit on Finn Balor here, because Finn Balor I don't think put a foot wrong.
No,
like, in terms of what he did, he was very good.
Yeah, he did. There was a bit of a reverse DDT on Victory here, which looked a bit off. But apart from that, Balor's
I think it was a case of I don't think Victor got enough height off the ground.
No. So anyway, cutting a long story short, end of the match comes. The Ascension attempt to go for the Fall of Man, which is their finisher.
Itami pulls Victor out.
Yeah,
then Itami has the big cock tease they had for years, which was will he hit the GTS?
And then the double coup de grace gets the win. 2 stars, boring match for me, 3 for you. Anyway, going on to this, we're going to watch the rest of the show, and we'll give you our thoughts in a second on the second part of this show. Will it be any better, or will it be just like the first half?
I think considering we got Neville versus